The strongest force in the human personality is the need to remain consistent with how we define ourselves. I'm going to say that again. The strongest force in the human personality is the need to remain consistent with how we define ourselves. What does that mean? We live in a world of so much uncertainty now because change happens how often? Constantly. Men's roles, women's roles, jobs, environments, businesses, bam, 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 it's all changing. So we have a need as human beings for certainty. We're not certain about relationships, businesses, time. We're not certain about a lot, but one thing at least we're certain about is I know who I am. If you don't know that, you freak out and you have what's called an identity crisis, where you can't make any decisions, you're freaking out. So we all define ourselves subconsciously. So some people see themselves as being extraordinarily conservative. Are they going to do something crazy? They're going to know, hey, I'm not that kind of person. What kind of person? I don't know, but I'm not that kind of person. Isn't that true? If you think you're outrageous, you move differently, you talk differently, you do things differently. There's no one right or wrong, but most of us have trapped ourselves in an old identity. We've never updated who we are today. And so you go learn something, a skill, a talent, or ability, but your identity is, this is who I am, and so you never far surpass it. I'll give you a metaphor, and this will make more sense. If in this room we set the thermostat at 78 degrees, and the temperature drops, let's say 78 degrees is a metaphor for your comfort zone, not your goals, your comfort zone, which is known as your identity. Okay, people have goals that are more than their identity. That's why they don't usually get their goals, unless they expand their identity. So 78 degrees is how your body weight, not your goal, but the one you're comfortable with that you live regularly. 70 degrees is how much intimate emotion you have in your personal relationship. 70 degrees is how much money you need to make to feel comfortable, not your ultimate goal, but your comfort zone. 70 degrees is the kind of relationship you need to have with God. It's at 78 degrees. And let's say the temperature drops to 72. What happens? This thermostat in your brain goes, hey, I am a 78 degree or not 72. And what happens? Heaters kick on. The heaters kick on to give you some kind of drive to change it, to make it better, to do something. How many of you ever experienced the part of your life, your body, your finances, somewhere where it dropped and it wasn't good enough and you felt drive to change it? How many have had that experience? Say I. Now, if it's 72 degrees and you're supposed to be at 78, you try to change it and it doesn't work, and try something else doesn't work, try something else doesn't work. After a while, nobody wants to have disappointment and pain. So what some people do is they lower the thermostat. They go, I'm not a 78 degreer, I'm a 72 degreer. Those 78 degreers are full of themselves. I'm downsizing and being smarter. Next thing you know, they're at 68, then they're at 54. By the way, when they get to 54, who do they surround themselves with? 78 degree people? Who do they surround themselves with? 50 degree people, so they can feel good about themselves on a regular basis. Isn't it true? Now, you people are not like that. You're all overachievers. So if you drop down to 72 degrees, you don't settle. You try something, doesn't work, you do something else, break through, get a seminar, learn something, get a cut, whatever it takes, I do it. And by the way, do you stop when you get back to 78 degrees, people? Yes or no? No, you get to 80, 85, 90, 95, 98, 99 degrees, and all of a sudden your brain goes, what are you doing? Who do you think you are? You're not a 99 degree. What are you doing up here? What the heck are you doing? And as soon as you realize you're outside your comfort zone, your brain clicks on, and guess what happens? The heaters stop, and you lose your drive. And now instead of selling, you're shopping, right? Now all of a sudden, you're in a position where if that's not enough, the air conditioners kick on, and you begin to sabotage yourself to get you back to where you think you deserve to be. How many of you, I know none of you have done this, but how many have seen other people sabotage themselves? How many have seen other people do this kind of stuff? I thought so, right? How many of you ever sabotage yourself? Say I. If you don't raise your hand, you lie about other things too, don't you? Come on. How many of you have been in a relationship and it's going really well, and then you like say something, you go, why do they say that? You know what's going to screw it up? How many of you have ever done this? Say I. So sabotage is because you're outside your comfort zone, you're beyond your identity. So the reason I tell you this is today, to get the most out of this day, one, change your state, because the fastest way to change your identity is to do things you don't normally do. And your brain will go, I don't do this, I just did it, it felt good. Maybe I could do this, maybe I'm more. Does that make sense? What gives you the edge? It's understanding why people do what they do. Because you understand why you can have powerful, positive influence. It says everything human beings do, they do for one of two reasons. We know what they are: to avoid what? Or to gain what? Now, as overly simplistic as that is, everything we do to avoid pain or gain pleasure, it's not quite true. Here's what I mean by that. We avoid what we associate pain to. We don't avoid real pain. We avoid what we associate pleasure to, because we're not dogs. As human beings, can we decide to make something that's painful actually pleasurable? Is that possible, yes or no? Can a hunger striker go on a strike and feel the physical pain of hunger and convert that into ecstatic feelings because they believe they're doing something that's morally right, yes or no? So we have the power to change what things mean to us and therefore what we feel in our body about them. We are not just like dogs. You know, a Nelson Mandela can be locked up for almost 27 years, right? And be in a position where it wasn't painful. When I met him the first time, I said, "How did you survive that?" And he looked at me with this really indignant look, like, "How dare you even use such a word?" And I looked at him and he said, "I didn't survive that." He said, "I prepared." I thought, whoa. He said, "I knew one of two things would happen. Either I would die and it would spark a revolution of change, or I would live and I have to be prepared to lead. And to be a real leader, I need to be prepared for that." I mean, can you imagine a man coming out and not want to kill everybody? If someone took a quarter of a century of your life, you might be just a smidge upset, wouldn't you? But instead, he comes out and says, "You know what? You guys have put me in jail. Lead with me." That's what human beings are capable of. But that means taking control of what equals pain and what equals pleasure. Most of us, though, live like dogs. We let other people train us what equals pain or pleasure so we fit into their world. We must take control of that process. And leadership, management, salesmanship is all influence, which is changing what people link pain and pleasure to. As long as someone links pain to something, they want to avoid it. If they can link pleasure to it, they're going to go for it. Let's take an example. Would all the ladies in the room, would all the women in the room please raise their hands so we can see the women in the room? Okay. Wow, keep your hands up. We might even have slightly more women than men in this room. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, great. So we have about 4,200 people here, so let's take it as 2,100. Out of 2,100 women, I'd like to do a survey. How many women in this room are wearing makeup this morning? Raise your hand if you're wearing makeup. Wow. Should be a makeup salesman in this room, right? Okay. All right. How many are not wearing makeup? That'll be an easier thing to measure. Okay. Keep your hands up. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50. So halfway is 50. So let's say there's even 100. Out of 2,100 women, max, there's 100 not wearing makeup. 2,000 wearing makeup, only 100 not. Now, why is that? Is it because women love the process of putting on the makeup? How many wake up in the morning, "Oh, I love to do this"? How many do it for that reason? Okay, a couple women on drugs, there's usually a few, okay. How many do not like to put on makeup, but you like the result, i.e. you associate pleasure to, if I wear makeup, you know, I feel more attractive, or other people more attracted to me? How many do it for pleasure reasons? Say I. How many women in this room sometimes wake up and think, "How come men don't have to do this?" But how many of you put it on anyway because you think, if I don't put on my makeup, someone's going to say, "What happened to your face?" How many do it to avoid pain, ladies out there, to avoid pain? How many do it for both these reasons? Let's see a show of hands. Now, how many men in the room are wearing makeup? How many men in the room are wearing makeup? One man. Thank you, sir, very much. Why aren't men wearing makeup? Is it because men are so naturally beautiful? Yeah, I'm beautiful, babe. No, I don't think so, bud. It's because we associate something different for a man wearing makeup than a woman, that's all. And for a man, it will usually equal pain in this culture, okay? Whereas for a woman, it equals pleasure. Everything we do, jot this down anywhere you want in your notes, just write down this. What I link pain to and what I link pleasure to shapes my destiny. What I link pain to and what I link pleasure to shapes my destiny. What I link pain to, what I link pleasure to shapes my destiny. Now, what does this mean? Well, lots of things shape our destiny, and I don't know what your spiritual beliefs are. I certainly believe in God, and I believe that there are choices that are there, but I think God gives you choices. And I believe your decisions are what shape your destiny. How many believe that you make choices and they shape your destiny? Say I. Now, if that's true, and I don't know that it is, but if that's true, if your decisions shape your destiny, what shapes your decisions? And the answer is, whenever you're going to do something, it's what you associate. If you think it's massive pain to do that, and this is going to be pleasurable, it's not hard to figure out. that your decision making shapes your destiny, but what shapes your decision making is what you link pain and pleasure to. That's your whole life. So what's interesting is we all have learned ways to get out of pain and into pleasure. Some people do drugs. Some people drink alcohol. Some people find a way to take care of their family or their kids or society. Some people achieve to overcome that pain. Some people eat. Everybody's got different ways, and whatever ways you've learned as ways to get out of pain into pleasure is shaping your destiny right now. See, I'm here to tell you that Mother Teresa, God rest her soul, and Donald Trump are driven by the same force. You say, Robbins, you sounded somewhat intelligent up until now. You're trying to tell me those two people, they're both alive, that they were both driven by the same force? That's insane. Donald Trump clearly is driven by economics, and she's driven by changing the world. True, but they're driven by what they've learned to link pain and pleasure to. See, Donald has learned to link pleasure to being number one, building the best building, building a brand, having money, et cetera, and being number two is equal to death. That'll give you some motivation, right? Mother Teresa is equally driven. I had the privilege of meeting her before she passed on. I don't know if you remember, but she at one time had a heart attack when she was down in San Diego, California, and I lived there. And I flew in the night afterwards, and I know one of the top heart surgeons in the country, and I went to go see her to see if she was going to get that kind of care. And when I went to see her, she was already out of the hospital. In the middle of the night, the nuns had taken her out without the doctors knowing. Can you imagine being the hospital that lost Mother Teresa? And she left a note that basically said, I'm busy. Not exactly, but she said, listen, thank you so much. Don't worry about me. I'm okay now. I can't sit in this hospital bed. People need me. And so she said, I'm going across the border to Tijuana in Mexico, and if you want to help me, don't send me flowers. Send me a mobile medical unit, which is like a giant ambulance with special stuff so she can get out to people that don't get health services. So I read about the thing in the paper, and it was on the news that night, and Scripps Hospital was talking about, well, we're going to have a board meeting to talk about this, and 4 days later, still nothing had happened. So I called a friend of mine, Martin Sheen, the actor, and I said, Martin, I know you love Mother Teresa, and he's a friend of mine. I said, how about you and I going together? Let's buy this mobile medical unit, and let's not call a press conference. Let's not do it for any reason. Let's just deliver it to her. If we're lucky, we'll meet her, and if we don't, we'll have done a good thing. So Martin agreed. We went and negotiated. We bought the thing. We drove it ourselves, crossed the border, went down there, and we meet Mother Teresa. Now, remember I told you state is what influences people so much? I mean, this woman, her state of love was so much you felt permeated by it. Plus, you changed state because she's about that tall. Like, how you doing, Mother Teresa? How are you? Got this picture of she and I waving like this, So I'm talking to her, and I'm a believer in the idea of modeling. Modeling is the concept that success leaves clues. That if someone is successful again and again and again, they are not lucky. They're doing something right. And if you sow the same seeds, you'll reap the same what? Rewards. Doesn't matter your gender, your age, your color, your background, your history. None of that matters. If you sow, you're going to reap if you sow the right seeds. So I've spent most of my life modeling. This seminar comes from modeling the best influencers that I know and putting it into a package that we can all use. So I thought, man, Mother Teresa, she's a saint. I'm with a saint. I could model a saint. So I said, Mother Teresa, mind if I ask you a few questions? She said, no, that'll be fine, Tony. I said, I'd like to know what gives you ecstasy in life? What gives you absolute, total ecstasy? And then the second time I said ecstasy, I went, ecstasy and none. Ooh, right? I went like, well, what like juices you? And I went, juices you? And she started, I thought she was choking to death. I was about to give her mouth to mouth. And then I thought, maybe I should wait. And I realized she was laughing. She had this cackle laugh. She said, you can use the word ecstasy with me. I said, really? I said, all right, well, what gives you ecstasy? I'll never forget. She paused. She looked at me. She said, Tony, what gives me ecstasy is to see a person die with a smile on their face. And I thought, whoa, not number one on my list. But in that moment, can you see why she went to 76 countries the last year of her life when her heart was terrible? See, she wasn't always this way. Time she was 50 years old, she was a school teacher, she was a nun, but she taught the richest kids in India. She wasn't helping people that were dying. She had an experience that changed her life, changed what meant pain and pleasure. A man was dying. She was in the city of joy, as it's called. It's not a beautiful place. And this man was dying. He saw she was dying. He tripped into her and fell in her arms, and she couldn't drop him. He came, sister, please help me, please help me. She wanted someone else to do it, but she couldn't. So she took him to the hospital, tried to drop him off. He said, please, they won't help me. Please stay with me. And he begged her, and after a while she realized that they didn't help him because he was, in that country, a lower caste. Took him to another hospital. By the third hospital, nobody helped him. So she took him home, and he died in her arms. Heavy. Boom! In one moment, she changed what equals pain and what equals pleasure. It used to be being around a dying person was ultimate pain. Now, not helping a dying person was the greatest pain of her life. She tried to leave the feeling. She got in a train and went away from the city, but you can't leave what's inside you. So she promised God that as long as she lived, no one within the range of her influence would ever die again without dignity and love. Did she keep her word? Because it became her standard, my friends, not her desire. And she lived it.